I only wanted to drop off laundry, but what I saw in my stepson's room that night made my heart race, and my morals channel thank you, all for endless support, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button form, or forbidden tales of love, guilt, and secrets. Let me ask you if you saw something you weren't supposed to. Would you turn away or stay and explore? It was just past midnight. Jake, my husband, had already gone to bed, and I was finishing up the laundry downstairs. I had a habit of folding everyone's clothes separately and leaving them outside their doors. But that night, I must have been more tired. Then I realized I pushed open the door. I thought was the guest room holding a neat stack of freshly folded shirts. But it wasn't the guest room, it was Eric's. And there he was, my 19-year-old stepson lying on the bed, completely naked with his hands slowly moving up and down his length. I froze. He didn't even hear me come in. He was focused, frustrated, his brows furrowed. His breathing was shallow, and he whispered, something under his breath. Why the hell is it still curved like that? I should have left. I should have shut the door and walked away. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped back, hiding just enough behind the door to peek. Watching a shamed and deeply curious, I had never seen a man's part curve like that before. It was thick, long, but bent upwards, lightly, almost like a hook, and Eric didn't look happy about it. After a few seconds, he suddenly groaned and stopped, throwing his head back against the pillow. "This is why girls laugh," he muttered to himself. That's when he saw me. His eyes widened in horror. He quickly grabbed a pillow and covered his face, turning crimson as sorry. "I didn't know you'd mow me." "Mean, what are you doing here?" I stammered, still holding the shirts in my hand. I was just dropping off laundry. I thought this was the guest room. We both stood there in awkward silence, breathing heavy. Then something inside me took over. I walked inside and closed the door. "Behind me, Eric," I said gently. "You don't need to be embarrassed with me. I'm a woman too. Remember?" He looked at me, confused and embarrassed. I sat at the edge of his bed, heartbeat racing. "You said it's curved." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I hate it. Girls think it's weird. I just wish it looked normal. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was the wine I'd had earlier. Maybe it was the loneliness I'd been feeling for months. Maybe it was just the raw honesty in his eyes. But I said it anyway. "Maybe I can help you straighten it." He blinked. "W. What do you mean?" I placed my hand gently on his thigh, looking him in. The eyes let me see it. "Let me help." He hesitated, his breathing hitched, then slowly he moved the pillow there. It was thick, curved, twitching slightly with nerves and anticipation. I reached out, brushing my fingers across it softly. He gasped. I examined it, pretending to be clinical, but my hands trembled with every inch. Touched, I felt his warmth, his vulnerability, and my body responded in ways it hadn't in years. "It's not ugly," I whispered. "It's beautiful, Eric." He looked at me like I was the first person who ever told him that. My fingers traced the curve gently, and he groaned, deep, low, hungry, and that's when I realized this wasn't about helping him anymore. It was about what? I wanted what I needed, what I couldn't get from Jake anymore. We didn't go further that night, but we both knew something had changed. Something. Forbidden something. Magnetic something we couldn't take back. I told myself I'd never go back into that room. But something about Eric's eyes kept pulling me in. The next few days were a blur. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Eric. His nervous eyes, the vulnerable look on his face when I walked in on him that night, and the way my hand touched him almost like it had a mind of its own. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Jake, my husband, lay peacefully beside me, unaware that something inside me had shifted, and Eric barely came out of his room. When he did, he avoided my gaze. I did the same. But the air between us was heavy, too heavy to ignore. At breakfast 2 mornings later, he finally broke the silence. "Hey," he said quietly. I still focused on his plate. About the other night, I paused mid-step. You don't have to explain, I whispered. It was confusing. He nodded, slowly. Yeah, it's just, I've always been self-conscious, about the way I'm shaped my heart. For him, he looked so vulnerable in that moment, not like the competent young man I'd known around the house, but like a boy unsure of himself. Eric, I said, gently, there's nothing wrong with you. He looked up at me. Then you said you could help. I froze. The room felt too small. Too cute, yes, I whispered. But maybe we should forget about it. It's not right. He nodded again, but his eyes held a sadness. Couldn't ignore that night Jake went out with some friends from work. The house was quiet, too quiet. I found myself standing outside Eric's door again, just like that night. This time I knocked. Come in. He said. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, just like before, shirt on this time. But his expression was the same, unsure, hopeful. Waiting, I closed the door behind me. "I shouldn't be here," I said. He stood up slowly. "But you are." I didn't answer. Just looked at each other, two people, caught in a moment that felt bigger than. Both of us. I haven't been able to stop thinking about that night, he admitted. My heart pounded me neither. There was silence, long, heavy, and full of tension. Then he stepped closer. Can I just hold you? That question broke me. I nodded. He wrapped his arms around me softly. At first, then tighter. I rested my head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. It should have felt wrong, but it didn't. It felt warm, comforting, needed. When he pulled back slightly, his eyes searched mine. You make me feel like I'm not broken. You're not, I whispered. You never were. His hand gently cupped my cheek, and then so slowly it happened, he kissed me, and I kissed him back. It wasn't wild or rushed, it was slow, emotional, confused. Real. When we pulled away, breathless and stunned by what we'd just done, we both knew there was no going back. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be, he replied. I've never felt safer than I do with you. We didn't do anything more that night. We just sat on the bed holding hands, whispering about everything and nothing but our hearts. They had already crossed the line, his touch. Made me forget my vows. I told myself it wouldn't happen again, but I found myself craving the warmth of his touch. The morning after that second night, I avoided his door like it was cursed. I woke up early, made coffee, like nothing happened, and tried to keep my hands busy, cleaning, folding laundry, anything to quiet the storm in my head, but my heart wouldn't listen. It kept racing every time I remembered his lips, the way he looked at me, the softness of his voice when he said he felt safe. With me I was a married woman, a wife. But more than that, I was supposed to be a stepmother, yet what I felt around Eric was no longer just confusion. It was something deeper, something dangerously close to desire. That evening, Jake came home earlier than usual, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I wanted to join him for a movie. I nodded, but my smile was fake. My mind wasn't on the movie. It was with Eric in the room down the hall. And then around 10 p.m., Jake got a call from work, some emergency, on site. He groaned, changed clothes, and headed out again. I should have felt disappointed, but instead my heart beat faster. The house was quiet again, and that quiet, it felt like an invitation. I sat on the couch for 10 long minutes, telling myself not to move, telling myself it was wrong bet, it had to stop here. But eventually my legs carried me to his door. This time, I didn't knock. Eric was lying on his bed, headphones and eyes closed. The dim light in the room made him look even younger, more innocent. But when he opened his eyes and saw me, something changed in his expression. He sat up slowly. You came back. I shouldn't have, I whispered. But I'm glad you did, he said. I stood there for a long second, then walked in, closing the door behind me. He didn't rush toward me. He didn't say a word. He just waited. And maybe that's what made me want him even more. I keep trying to forget, I admitted, my voice trembling. But I can't. He stood up just inches from me, Neither can I, our eyes locked. Again, and just like before, the pull was too strong this time. When he touched me, it was different. His fingers gently traced my arm like he was memorizing the shape of it. My breath caught in my throat. "I've never touched anyone like this before," he confessed. "I've never wanted to." High honesty shattered the last wall between us. I leaned into his touch, closed my eyes, then "Take your time," I whispered. "Make it count." We moved to the bed. Not in a rush of lust, but in a slow rhythm of curiosity and aching emotion. Every touch, every sigh, every kiss carried guilt, but also something that felt frighteningly like love in his arms. I felt seen. I felt wanted. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's stepmother, but as a woman, as me, Westade, like that, entangled in quiet closeness. Whispering secrets, sharing silent stares, and forgetting even for a little while who we were outside that room. When I finally stood to leave, he held my hand a little longer than he should have. "Will I see you again?" Hesked, his voice low, hesitated, then nodded. "Yes," I closed his door behind me with trembling fingers and a racing heart. Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't the end. He opened the door. And for a second, I thought everything was over. They say, secrets have a way of slipping through the cracks, and, in my case, that crack came on a rainy Thursday night. The day had started normally: breakfast with Jake, light chores, a few messages from my sister, but all morning I couldn't stop thinking about Eric, the way he touched me, the way he looked at me like I was the center of his world, and worse, I was starting to need that feeling like a drug I never meant to try but now couldn't live without. By 5 cows p. Jake had gone to the gym, and Eric was home early from his classes. The storm outside had darkened the sky, and the sound of thunder felt like a warning I should have listened to, but I didn't. I waited till the house was quiet, again heart pounding. Then, made my way to Eric's room. When I opened the door, he was standing by the window watching the rain. "You came," he said softly, as if he'd been waiting for me all day. "It shouldn't be here," I replied. But I didn't leave. He turned, walked toward him, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "But you are," and that was all it took. In that stormlit room, we lost ourselves again. But this time it was different. Not just slower or sweeter, it was deeper, more emotional. There was this unspoken energy between us, a feeling I couldn't explain. But in the middle of that quiet connection, we heard it, a sound, the click off the front door. Jake was home. My entire body froze. Eric looked at me, his eyes wide. "Go now." I grabbed my robe, heart thundering, and dashed toward the hallway. But the moment I opened Eric's door to sneak out, Jake was standing right there, drenched from the rain, keys still in hand. He stared at me, barefoot, wearing a robe, stepping out of his son's room. Time stopped. My mouth went dry. I was just checking if Eric was okay. He looked pale earlier. Jake blinked, clearly processing. "Oh yeah, he's been tired lately." Relief washed over me like cold water. He believed me, or at least he wanted to believe me. I smiled nervously. "Want me to fix you some tea?" "Sure," he said, though his eyes lingered on me a bit longer than usual. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying it over and over. What if I had left the door a second later? What if he'd opened it instead of me? What if he knew when? I finally went to Eric's room. The next day he was quiet. "We have to be more careful," I whispered. He nodded, but his jaw clenched. "I don't like hiding you. You're not hiding me. You're protecting me, us." He reached for me hand. "Do you ever think about what this really means?" I looked down, unsure what to say, because the truth, I didn't know what it meant anymore. All I knew was when I was with Eric, I didn't feel like a mistake. I felt wanted, loved, and free. But how long could a love like that stay hidden? How long? Before someone else saw what was happening behind closed doors. The fear was real now, because secrets don't just break hearts, they break homes. It was supposed to be just own night, but we forgot the door was unlocked. They say the walls have ears. That night I learned just how true that was. The air was thick with heat. Not just from the summer evening, but from the way. Eric looked at me as we passed each other in the hallway. Jake had gone tubed early after a long day at work. His snores were usually reliable like a lullaby that said, "You're safe for the night." So we took the risk. We crept back into Eric's room just past midnight. We whispered, we laughed. We kissed like two people who had no tomorrow. But in our passion, in that moment of reckless comfort, we made one big mistake. We forgot to lock the door half. An hour in, lost in each other's arms. I thought, I heard a sound, a shuffle, a breath. We both froze. Eric sat up, eyes darting to the doorway. Nothing, silence. We brushed it off. Maybe it was the wind, but something felt wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling even. As I tiptoed back to my room just before dawn, the next morning, Jake barely looked at me. He sat at the breakfast table reading the news. Coffee untouched. "You didn't sleep well?" I asked, casually. He looked up, his eyes held something different, had a weird dream, he said slowly. "Thought I heard voices in the house." I laughed nervously, "Probably the TV." He didn't respond, just stared as if trying to read the truth off my face. Eric didn't come down for breakfast. He texted me instead. "Do you think he heard?" I didn't reply because I didn't know later. That day I caught Jake standing outside Eric's door. Just standing there, listening. My heart dropped that evening. Everything felt off. The dinner table was quiet. No jokes, no normal. After Jake went to bed, I got a message from Eric. "I think we need to stop, at least for now." Tears burned my eyes because even though I knew this couldn't go on forever, I wasn't ready for it to end, but maybe it wasn't about what I was ready for. Maybe the truth was knocking, and this time the door was open. In life, we all face moments of weakness, temptation, and difficult choices. But every action has consequences. One moment of pleasure can lead to a lifetime of regret. Always ask yourself, is it worth losing everything you love just to satisfy a temporary desire? Let this story be a reminder that secrets have a way of surfacing, and when they do, they can tear families apart. Protect what matters most. Choose honesty, choose integrity. And if you ever find yourself in a difficult situation, remember, there's always a better path than betrayals. Stay strong, stay true, and thank you.